Hello there, Facebook family. Shawn Kerley here with Brian Stevens with the National Real Estate Post. How are you, sir?
I'm great. I'm great. Yeah, it's Monday, man. We got a whole week in front of us to make extraordinary decisions to make people's lives better. So it's a great opportunity. Yeah, I'm looking
Or
forward
we
to
can bitch and complain about everything and not do a damn thing, right?
it. Yeah. What's the fun in that? What's the fun in that?
Yeah. So we're going to talk about a couple of things here, and of course, I'm sure everybody's tired of hearing about Zillow and what they've done and their acquisition of Showing Time for a mere $500 million.
Yep.
But it's something that we do have to cover. And, there's some, in the past couple of weeks, there's been some other things that have come to light. And Tristan was talking about 2 weeks ago is why did they go after Showing Time? Because they have 1 million agents in their arsenal as far as who uses this technology, and they're going after the data. And what Howard Tager with Ylopo and him and Tristan were talking about is if they control the data, they control the consumer. If they control the consumer, they control the agents. So ultimately, Zillow is going after this customer experience deal to where not only can they still sell leads to agents, but then they can still go after their commissions and basically try to take a lot of that pie away from them. So what are your thoughts on Zillow's acquisition of Showing Time?
Well, they didn't do it because they want to be helpful to real estate agents. I can tell you that for sure. They didn't spend $500 million because they're trying to make your life easier.
Yeah.
Nobody in the history of the world has ever done that. Mother Teresa wouldn't do that. So Zillow's not going to do it. Real estate agents, you need to understand that Zillow has a legal and moral obligation, a fiduciary. You've heard the term, bet you can't spell it, but you've heard the term, a legal and moral obligation to their shareholders. That means they have to make as much money as humanly possible for their shareholders. Nowhere in that legal and moral obligation does it say that they need to be nice to real estate agents. They will be nice to you to the extent that it'll make their shareholders more money. That's it. The minute you don't serve a purpose and you cost them money, your ass is gone. You need to understand this. They have a legal and moral obligation to their shareholders, not you and not your clients. Now, don't you find this interesting? As a real estate agent, you have a fiduciary to your buyer or to your seller, where you have to put their needs in front of yours, okay? Their needs become a priority in your world. Now think about Zillow. Zillow is in contrast to that. If their legal and moral obligation is to their shareholders, that means to the buyers and sellers, they are fodder to be taken advantage of, because the more they can screw your buyers and sellers, the more it makes money and fulfills their legal obligation to their shareholders. Understand this. They have a polarizing opposite relationship with buyers and sellers in your community that you have. That is a fact. If you've ever listened to Zillow's quarterly reports to their shareholders, they talk exactly about how much money they're making off the backs of your communities, off the backs of the real estate agents, and off the backs of the buyers and sellers. Now, Showing Time, $500 million. Yeah, that was kind of expensive. You think they did that without an expectation of getting a return on that money? They absolutely are, and I'll explain to you how they're going to do that in a second. But here's the bigger play that nobody's really talking about right now. In your state, Zillow is now a real estate broker. Did you know that?
Yep.
Zillow is now a real estate broker, which means they should be held to the same standards that you're held to. The exact same standards, because they're a real estate broker. Why would they become a real estate broker in your state? It's very simple: to compete against you. Now, I've talked with a lot of real estate agents. They're like, Zillow can't compete with me. I know people in my community. Really? They got better technology, more eyeballs, and they have a market cap rate 3 times higher than every real estate company in the country combined, which means they can outspend you in your community.
So revisit that, what you just said about the capital. I mean, because that is just mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
They have more money than every single brokerage or every single real estate company combined. Is that what you said?
They lap them 3 times over.
That's nuts.
Every single one of them, and they have never listed a house yet. And they're worth more than Keller. They're worth more than RE/MAX. They're worth more than all the Realogy brands, all the mom and pops. They're worth more than all of you 3 times lapped. It is remarkable. And what this is it's really the market telling us that they believe in technology and they're not betting on you. I completely disagree with that. So here's my whole thing. Now imagine this, just as if you're a real estate agent out there, just just riddle me this for a couple of seconds. We'll move on because I know that we're all sick of it. Frankly, I think you guys should all get torches and pitchforks and go storm their headquarters in Seattle. I really do believe that. Molotov cocktails right through the front window.
Well,
Oh, and by the way, I ain't part of your National Association of Realtors so I can say exactly what I want to say. And it's true too, because they are absolutely taking advantage of you. They are. They're a broker right now competing against you. And yes, they are going to start listing agents. They're working in the capacity as a buyer, as a seller, as a lister, as a title, as a realtor, as even to a lesser extent, an appraiser, as a lender. They've got the entire thing. And this is called disrupting the industry.
Mhm.
Now, when you act the part of the buyer, the seller, the listing agent, the selling agent, the appraiser, the lender, the title, the escrow, when you act the part of all of these things as a disruptor, what you do is you take away all the checks and balances that protect buyers and sellers. And when that deal closes, that money is moving out of your community and it is going to Seattle, where the median sales price for a house is $1.2 million. I bet it's not that where you live. It's because they are strip mining wealth out of our communities. This is what they're doing. And in their quarterly reports, what Zillow says is, we are charging 7.5%. We're going to get it up to 8%. They're charging more than any real estate agent in the country. They're making 50 basis points. This is Zillow, not me. This is Zillow. Their words to their shareholders that they will never tell a real estate agent. They're currently making 50 basis points on every transaction where they're flipping these homes. They want to get it up to 500 basis points.
Holy moly.
Yes, this is their words in their quarterly report. This is what Zillow is doing to your community. They're not helping. They're not disrupting in a way that's going to make things better. They're taking away checks and balances. They're buying low. They're selling high. They're charging more. And all that money is leaving your community for the Pacific Northwest. So yeah, it's highway robbery. And I'll tell you this, if you'll indulge me for one moment.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so here's what they're saying right now. Is what's going on is they're saying, well, all your boards are going out there and they're talking to their representative real estate agents. And here's one from the St. Louis Board of Real Estate Agents, and it's pretty much a boilerplate for what every single board is telling their agents right now. What they're saying is Zillow is now a real estate brokerage and a realtor. Let's keep in mind that our code of ethics is very clear about how we speak about our competitors and peers. How about we speak about them like this, truthfully? Can we do that? Can we have an honest conversation about what Zillow is doing to, not for the real estate community? Can we have an honest conversation? According to your board, apparently not. The Department of Justice is laser focused on the real estate industry right now. Just as we wouldn't enter conversations on commission fixing, it's imperative that we do not join or start conversations that would limit or discourage the free open marketplace for all businesses and business models. Let me tell you this. Right now, there are class action lawsuits going against real estate agents saying they're charging too much money. Mm-hmm. That all across the country, there are class action lawsuits. Now, understand this. If you win that lawsuit, you lose. Because now your clients think you screwed them twice. If you lose that lawsuit, you lose. So you lose as a real estate agent. But here's what you ought to be thinking about. Where did this lawsuit start? I can tell you where it started. It started with the fintech companies, the Open Doors, the Zillows, and the OfferPads of the world. And when you look at technology companies, they have a long, rich history of doing this. YouTube was the first one to bring lawsuits against their very platform. Why did they do that? Because their competitors couldn't keep up or finance the cost of the litigation that YouTube brought against itself. So they smear out their competition. Facebook did the same thing. Who did they do it to? MySpace. I don't know if you guys remember this, but MySpace was first to the space before Facebook was.
I think Tom and I are still friends. Sorry.
Yeah, why did Facebook do this? Because MySpace couldn't compete. They snuff out the competition. Mm-hmm. So what's happening right now is a systematic smear campaign against real estate agents for what they charge, which is cheaper than every one of these fintech companies. And these lawsuits are being brought against real estate agents by your peers who are now realtors in your neighborhood. Listing data and data decisions are made at a brokerage level. If you have questions about where your seller's listings appear, please discuss it with your broker. Well, I'll tell you this right now. I have a relationship with ListHub, and real estate agents don't have an opportunity to either participate or not participate in half of these aggregating systems, including Zillow. Listen, when we look at what Zillow is doing right now, they are surgical in their attacks against real estate agents. And my last point on this is they have a new home builders convention in Vegas every year. Probably not this COVID year, but every other year they do. And it's bigger than the NAR convention. If you've ever been to like the NAR convention in San Francisco or San Diego, these things are massive. It's bigger than those. Guess who the platinum sponsor of the National Association of Home Builders is? Other convention. You got it. It's Zillow. And what they say is, Zillow, the future of real estate. List with us and save money. They don't tell real estate agents that, but that's what they tell the National Association of Home Builders. So yes, when they bought Showing Time, they're doing this because they're going to have a consumer direct portal and they're going to start snuffing out real estate agents. If you haven't seen it yet, if you don't believe me, I've got a bridge to sell you. Just call me after this. I have a bridge to sell you if you don't think Zillow is after your job and your commissions.
So you said a lot there. And one thing I find fascinating is that the fintech companies start lawsuits against realtors as far as saying that they're charging too much. Then they come into the game to start, selling, listing, doing all those things under their entire umbrella. But now they even have the boards of the local realtors saying, "Hey, play nice. Don't complain about them too terribly much." It's what do these boards actually think is going to happen if Zillow comes in and takes them? They're going to lose so much membership because agents are going to leave the business or be forced out. I don't know. That just
here's a quote. We will remain. This is a quote, a direct quote. I'm reading it off my computer right now. We will remain awake at the wheel as our industry, local and nationally, changes. You are not awake at the wheel. If ever there was a case of being asleep at the wheel, this is it. And this is coming from your boards. That is a direct quote. We will use our voices to be heard at the levels of both the National Association of Realtors and the Missouri Association of Realtors. No, you won't. In the first paragraph in this email to every associate member, they say, shut your mouth. And then 4 paragraphs in, they say, we're going to use our voice and we will be heard.
Yeah.
What is it going to be, guys? Shut your mouth or we're going to be heard. It's borderline comical if there wasn't so much at stake.
Yeah, and that's the problem. It's like the aircraft carrier. Once it gets going, it's hard to stop, right?
Yep.
So let's talk about your everyday average agent doing 20 deals a year, whatever. How do they even fight back in their own little ecosystem of clientele that they've built up over the years or trying to build up now? Is it they have to double down on database management, which we always know is one of the largest struggles in this business for agents and also mortgage professionals as well? Are they doubling down on their database management, trying to get their newsletters heard, their email blasts, client events maybe, and then sneaking in the iBuyer fee breakdown where they're trying to victimize a commission of 6% or whatever it is in your local market? But then they go out and then they're basically make 8% what you're telling me if you list with Zillow or if you list with any of these other tech companies. Like how does an agent fight the David and Goliath fight here?
Sure. No real estate agent ever did themselves a disservice by picking up their phone and calling their past, current, and future client database. Never once, never, ever, ever hurt your business by picking up your phone, time blocking, and calling your past, future, and existing databases. That's the big thing. Here's what you have to understand. Real estate agents have to fight this battle, and it is a battle for your business. Gary Keller actually pointed that out, and he's absolutely right. I don't care if you like or hate Gary. I kind of like him and hate him in the same breath. Gary's, he's a very opinionated person, and I don't always agree with everything that he says or everything that he's done. But in this case, he's absolutely spot on. He called this one a battle. This is a battle for the future of real estate. You can't fight this battle on their terms. What are their terms? Their terms are macro, not micro. Their terms are macro, okay? Their terms are heavily reliant on technology. And why is it macro and why is it tech-based? Because they have no other options. And by the way, that's a pretty damn good option for them.
Sure.
Excuse me. Macro, big money, big technology. That's what they're doing. Lots of eyeballs. That's the only grounds that they can fight on because they don't have that relationship with, the junior varsity volleyball coach. They can't go to your church. They don't know the waitress at the place you have lunch 3 times a week. They can't go micro. They have to go macro. What real estate agents have is they have numbers. That's their benefit. And real estate companies need to quit fighting with each other. This isn't a case of who's bigger, Keller or KW, or Realogy or Keller or KW. It's not that's not it. It's not EXP, it's not Realty One, it's not Berkshire Hathaway. It is all of you versus them. That's what you need to understand. The real estate community has numbers. You guys can go micro. Okay, you have 1.6 million agents. You got about 1 million agents who are actually doing work. You got about 600,000 who aren't doing anything. So just get rid of them. So the 1 million agents who are actually doing work, if we could convince you that reaching out to your community and letting them know the realities of what's actually taking place in real estate right now, it would benefit your personal business, your broker's business, and your community and your client base. Like, honestly, I can't even tell you how many times I've spoke with buyers because I've been having this conversation. I do speaking gigs before the whole pandemic broke down. And I had Open Door who were coming to my gigs to tell all the realtors who I was speaking to that I was wrong. It's great. They, a multi-billion-dollar company is sending out their best people to argue with just little old Brian Stevens, and we mop them up every time. It's so easy to do. But I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with people who either thought about using an Open Door, an OfferPad, or a Zillow, or did use it and regretted it because they don't understand what the actual costs are. I've broken down their net sheets on these things. They charge fees that I've never even heard of before.
Yeah.
They have, I think it's Open Door. They have on one of their net sheets, they had an adverse market risk fee of 4.5%. What the hell is that? Oh my God, listen, the market might go down here, and because it might go down, I'm gonna have to charge you another 4.5%.
Money
on a $400,000 house, that's $17,000.
Yeah.
So now really what a real estate agent can do is one, talk with your broker about not syndicating your properties to Zillow on their platform. That's what I would do first and foremost. And the second thing is talk to your database, talk to your clients. Here's the thing. Everybody right now has a glut of buyers. You should be talking to your database because a lot of people have the wrong idea of where real estate is right now. They don't understand that it's going gangbusters. They don't understand that they could actually sell their house. We talked about this last time. They could sell their house right now and get top dollar for it and buy into a softer market, particularly if you have one of those entry-level homes. So this is a great time to reach out to your database to find out what they're doing, to see if they're falling behind on their payment, because this is starting to happen, to reach out to your clients, to see what their disposition is and see if they've got enough equity to possibly, in our low rate environment, move up and buy a nicer house. Have these conversations with your clients. If we did this and spoke about the fact that these fintech, these disruptor companies are charging more than any real estate agent anywhere, even at full tilt boogie 6%, we start to educate our communities, and you get to, and as a result, you get to keep a lot more of that wealth in your community where it does a service. Because I'll tell you this, after this next $2 trillion bailout and people start coming out from underneath the rocks of this whole ridiculous COVID thing, and they find out that 65% of their small businesses are now defunct and not coming back, there is going to be a reckoning. So the more that we can do in the real estate community to keep money in our communities through buying and selling with local real estate agents, the better off we're going to be when the hangover comes. And boy, it's coming.
So you said Gary earlier, sounds like he's the only industry leader that's really saying anything or being vocal about it.
Yep.
Why is everybody else quiet? I mean, where are all the other folks to try to ban the brothers or whatever to fight this fight?
Honestly, it is a little baffling, isn't it? Where is the CEO of Realogy? Where are they? Where is the brain trust at Remax? Where's the brain trust at Berkshire? Like, why aren't they coming out and talking about this? Listen, before the pandemic hit, when you go to markets, everybody start, like all these fintech companies, they all start in Phoenix, Arizona, because the state of Arizona has this thing called the Office of Innovation, and it allows technology companies to run roughshod over the rules and regulations that guide any industry. So the rules and regulations that guide lenders in the state of Arizona and real estate agents in the state of Arizona, if you are deemed a financial technology company, you don't need to follow those rules. That's, by the way, I'm not joking. I am absolutely not joking at all. They call it they literally, look it up. They call it the sandbox rule. The idea in a sandbox is you could build your castle, knock it down, and just build another one. It doesn't matter if you screw clients over. The other thing is why they do everything in the greater Phoenix area is because that whole city has been built up over the past, 2 decades. So the houses are very similar. It's not like if you're going to go to Gatlinburg or Knoxville, Tennessee, where they've got, a spec house here and a spec house there. Everything out there is on tracks. So when you put together an algorithm to determine what the value of a property is, to figure out how much you need to screw that person over when you buy their house, it's an easier market to do in Phoenix than it is in other areas. One, because all the houses are the same, so you can get a more accurate figure in terms of what the value of that property is going to be, assuming tweakers didn't live in there. And the other thing is the state of Arizona will let you do whatever you want and screw people over. So right before this whole thing started going down, upwards of 60% of all properties in Arizona or in the Phoenix area were listed with these financial technology firms. So there's definitely legs on this thing. And here's this is okay, guys, understand this. And I know we're getting in the weeds here. Just hear me out for a second. So the head of the Office of Innovation for the state of Arizona did such a bang up job allowing financial technology companies to screw people over that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, in case you don't know what that means, it is a bureau that is put together to protect consumers' finances. That's what it's about. They did such a bang up job in Arizona that they took the guy who wrote the law for Arizona and they created a new post at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to allow financial technology firms to run roughshod over the rules and regulations that guide every real estate agent and lender in the country. Isn't that awesome?
So they're doing that, but then they're also putting out ads to try to hire more lawyers to ramp up their litigation efforts against everybody else.
Of course. Wouldn't you do that if you had all the money in the world? Yeah. Wouldn't you try to snuff out your competition? Wouldn't you try to smear their name? I would. This isn't a leap of faith. The thing is if we don't do anything about it, if we go with the status quo as the real estate community right now and do nothing about it, in 10 years, you're going to go the way of the travel agency. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Very select fews.
Yeah, and by the way, speaking of travel agencies, I read an article a few months ago that said travel agencies are starting to come back. Not in the numbers that we had before Travelocity and stuff like that. But here's what we've discovered is when somebody is going to buy a ticket to go from San Francisco to San Diego, to go from New York to from Manhattan to Boston, to go from, St. Louis to Chicago. We're going to go ahead and we're going to use the Travelocities of the world because it's easy. It's a short flight. But what we've discovered is when people are making those once in a lifetime trips overseas, going to Italy to go see the Colosseum, going to Greece, going to Hong Kong, wherever, where you want to go. When we're doing these big ticket travels, we are starting to go back to the travel agencies. And this is also for millennials, the younger generations. And what it really comes down to is that if we're going to spend, $5,000 to $10,000 on a trip, we want the expertise of a professional to make sure that that money is going to be well spent on a great vacation, not something where we're just clicking buttons on Travelocity. And that makes sense. Yeah, if I'm going to spend $10,000, I want to make sure this is going to be a great trip. Yeah. Well, if it's going to come down to where you want a professional with the big ticket items, what's a bigger ticket item than buying a house? And think about this, guys. Hold on. Should you really be able to buy a house with this thing? Should you really be able to say, oh, there's a house, click, 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 enter, bang, done. Is that good?
Scary.
Can you see anything that could possibly go wrong with this? What's at issue here that we don't like? For instance, there are subdivisions out in Dallas, Texas, that are all built with bad foundations where they didn't put the rebar in right. And there's tracks where they have, problems with the rebar. There's tracks down in Florida where they used Chinese sheetrock that's got ammonia in it that makes people sick. There are tracts in the Midwest where they're putting, comp roofs on that are faulty. There are so many things individually on independent properties that have to be looked at that take time to ensure that if you're going to spend $500,000 or $3/8 of $1 million on a property, to ensure that that investment is going to be safe and sound, that you don't have foundation problems, that you don't have ammonia laden, sheetrock, that you don't have poisonous fungus growing in the walls, that you don't have an easement, to a water drain that cracked from a hill up, north of you. Like, there's so many things that need to be looked at when somebody is buying a house. The fact that we are trying to get rid of all those checks and balances and make buying a house as easy as buying a book or a pair of shoes with your phone is just a problem waiting to happen. Listen, if you're going to move, you need time to pack. You need time to pack. You don't need to buy a house in a day. You don't. You need to pack your stuff. You need to declutter and get rid of stuff. Yeah. Give yourself the 15 to 30 to 40 days so all the stuff could be looked at on your house. So if you are buying or you're selling a house, that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and you're getting exactly what you think you're getting. You're not buying a lemon. And houses are lemons too. There are houses that in fact are lemons.
For sure. Well, let's switch gears off of the Zillow. The world is ending because of the big tech monsters coming. Let's talk about another fun topic, is inventory woes.
Yeah.
Now you and Frank were on your National Real Estate Post show last week. Yep. You started throwing out some numbers that I found staggering, and you guys went over 2020 forbearance numbers. So everybody knows that 2020, the CARES Act was passed in March. People could kick the can down the road 6, 12 months, whatever, to where they didn't have to pay their mortgage payment. But you said in 2020, there was 5.4 billion in volume in forbearance. Yeah. And then in 2021, that could balloon up to 30.
Yeah, that, by the way, just to let you guys know, that is the amount of liens that are in forbearance that are going defunct. Okay. So it's not 5.4 billion properties. No. It's 5.4 billion in liens against properties that are essentially going defunct. Here's what's going on, guys. Riddle me this. We have the hottest real estate market in the history of our country. We do right now. It is right now the hottest real estate market we've ever had, ever. So if we're in the hottest real estate market ever, why are we giving people a year and a half where they don't have to make their house payment? That doesn't even make sense. How do we reconcile these 2 points? You don't have to make your payment for a year and a half, hottest real estate market ever. Well, if you don't have to make your payment for a year and a half, the reason is because you can't make your payment. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you can't make your payment, how the hell could it be the hottest real estate market ever? What if we didn't have those people in forbearance and we just let everybody who can't make their payment, let those houses sell, short sell, or foreclose? Would our market be as hot? And the answer is absolutely not. Here's what we did. When the whole coronavirus thing came out, we had a $3 trillion Band-Aid. Now, I've done this math before. 1 million seconds is 11 days. 1 billion seconds is 37 years. Well, 1 trillion seconds is 37,000 years. That's the truth.
That's the separation from 1 billion? Holy.
Yep. So the difference between 1 billion and 1 trillion, one is 37 years, the other one is 37,000 years. These numbers, like when we had the 2008 meltdown, we were throwing around billions of dollars, and that's a lot of money. But now we're throwing around trillions of dollars, and think of how much more that is than billions of dollars. So we had a $3 trillion Band-Aid. Well, that is, of course, is going to prop up what it did is prop up the real estate community, propped up real estate prices. Now we're having a $2 trillion add-on. That's $5 trillion of money that the Federal Reserve is printing to prop up the real estate community. We can't keep doing this. It's not sustainable. No. It's from any practical measure, it is absolutely not sustainable. And I'll tell you this, I don't want to get too far in the weeds on this, but if you want to find a reason why cryptocurrencies are doing so great right now, is a lot of people are losing faith in central banks. Yeah. In particular, the Federal Reserve of the United States of America, who's adding zeros and zeros to their balance sheet. It's not sustainable. So what happens when, the good times with a $5 trillion in bailout, when it wears off, what's that hangover going to look like? Well, here's what we know. We know that there are people who are coming out of forbearance right now. But as people are coming out of forbearance, we're going, hey, this is great. People are coming out of forbearance. That's a great idea. But here's the problem. People who are pathologically habitually late, people who are 90 to 120 days late on their mortgage, those numbers have quadrupled in the past 3 months. So people are coming out of forbearance, that's great, but those people who are coming out of forbearance still can't make their house payment, and now they're just behind on their mortgage. Plus they have that year of forbearance tacked onto the end of the principal. So as forbearance numbers are going down, it's a teeter-totter. As forbearance numbers are going down, bloop, those 90 and 120 day late are going up. This is happening right now. And what we learned from Fannie Mae's year-end report, their Q4 report. Now, Fannie Mae is the biggest insurer of mortgages in the entire world. In the entire world, Fannie and Freddie are the government-sponsored enterprises, and Freddie Mac tracks what Fannie Mae is doing. And what Fannie Mae said is those $5 billion that we currently have in loans that are not performing, that are coming out of forbearance, is going to go up to $30 billion. But their numbers are remarkably conservative when you start looking at all the numbers that are currently in forbearance who are not making their payment, who cannot make their payment. Frankly, the number could be 4 times that large. Now, what does this mean for, like, what in a practical sense, what does this mean for real estate agents? Well, it means this. You're going to have more inventory sometime late 2021. Because as this forbearance period, and they just gave them another 6 months with no payments. Like, seriously, if you can't make your payment, why do we let you live in a house for a year and a half? I'm not being a jerk about this. I'm not being Machiavellian about it, but it doesn't make sense to allow people to live rent-free, because guess who pays for that in the long haul? You and I do. Joe and Jane taxpayer. We're the ones who are going to float the bill on these deals because they're all Fannie Freddie deals, and they give their implicit guarantee to the investor on that mortgage-backed security. So they're living scot-free. Well, not exactly. They're living, and me and you are going to be the ones who are paying for this ultimately. Now, if we have a glut of buyers and we don't have the inventory, doesn't it just make more sense to put people in the houses who can actually make the payment? So here's what I would do if I was a real estate agent. Again, going back to being micro.
Sure.
The whole Zillow thing, remember? Nobody ever did themselves a disservice by picking this thing up. So if I was a real estate agent, knowing that the number of people who cannot make their house payments is starting to balloon right now, and knowing that people will put their head in the sand rather than deal with the uncomfortable truth of their situation. We saw this in 2008. People would wait for the sheriff to come and kick them out of their house before they would deal with a short sale. Or in our case, it's just a normal sale, which you could probably do because people have built up so much equity over the past few years. As a real estate agent, I would be reaching out to my past client database, and I would just talk with them. I'd start that. Again, we had this conversation last week. I would talk with them. I'd say, hey guys, how you doing? Brian Stevens here. Hey, listen, how's everything going with your mortgage right now? How's everything going with the house? You guys happy where you're at? Everything going good? By the way, real estate prices are going gangbusters right now. You probably don't get that if you watch the news on a regular basis. But we right now are in the hottest market we've ever seen. You probably have more equity in that house now than you've ever had. I could actually do a broker priced opinion to let you know exactly how much equity you have. Would you like to find out what your house is actually worth today? Now, if somebody is, you tell them how much equity they have. And when I would do that broker price opinion, I would give it to them. And I'd also give them a list of houses that are nicer and more expensive, saying, hey, you can sell this house and buy that bigger, better house over there. Or I would find out if somebody, in a very subtle way, if they're having a hard time making their payment. Chances are, with your past client database, you know what type of job that most of your clients were in. If you had somebody who owned a small business in your community, there's a good chance that they're struggling right now and they might be behind on their payments.
Sure.
You know, there are going to be listings. The question is, are they going to be straight listings, or are they going to be short sales? Are they going to be short sales, or are they going to be foreclosures? But the listings are going to come because people simply can't make their payments. And it will be the second half of 2021.
Yeah, it's sad to hear and see, but I mean, we've been at this for almost a year now, as far as, you know, businesses furloughing and, you know, laying people off, and it's very, very sad, but you know, there is opportunity out there to help those folks. I mean, ultimately, if they have a bunch of equity, you could sell that house and then they have a full year of rent paid for right there in profits, to where they don't have to worry about it any longer.
Right.
Yeah,
and then live to fight another day, you know, because a sale is better than a short sale. A short sale is better than a foreclosure. If you know somebody is on that track to a foreclosure, then you have a moral obligation as a real estate agent, as a trusted member of your community, to reach out to folks if you know better and try to keep them from that short sale or try to keep them from that foreclosure. I wouldn't look at this as marketing or being somebody who's taking advantage of others. I would say that you have a moral obligation as a trusted advisor in the real estate realm to reach out to these people so they can have that normal sale before that short sale, so they can get that year of free rent, where they can live to fight another day and buy a house, once things get back to normal. But right now, the second half of 2021 is going to be very uncomfortable for a lot of people.
Yeah, and then there's something else that's going to be probably going to be hurting the demand a little bit, and that's with interest rates on the rise for what, into the threes now or wherever. It's amazing that even historically low interest rates, to say even 3.5%, how much that would turn the spigot off on the demand for people trying to buy houses, or especially refinances. But if the rates go up, then the people that were looking to buy that bigger house, like, ooh, we can afford the bigger home now, because affordability is so much cheaper. But rates go up half point or whatever, then that's going to turn it off. And then you also have a flood of foreclosures. Then that client loses that ability to maximize on the market right now. So. Yeah, it's huge. It's huge.
I think they call that get while the getting's good. And right now the getting is good, so get it.
Yeah, for sure. Last thing.
Sure.
Fannie Mae. We've been talking about Fannie. You reported that their average client in 2020 had a credit score of 760 with a loan to value of 71%. Now, I know the loan to value thing got affected with the 4 trillion or whatever it was of refinances that went through. But the credit score still remains, 760 on it. We all know that Fannie and Freddie are typically your A paper, but don't you think this is like A plus to the 10th degree here with a 760 middle?
It's it truly is, and I mean this too, it's an embarrassment. It is nothing short of an embarrassment. If you look at the charter of Ginnie notes, Ginnie is going to be HUD, your FHA, VA, your USDA. Those are Ginnie, and your Fannie and Freddie. When you look at the charters of these companies, their charters are all to serve the underserved. Their charters are all to bring affordable housing to the citizens of the United States. All of them. All of them. That's the whole idea. With a 760 credit score and an LTV at 70, anybody in the world would do that note. Anybody. Like anybody, you could go get a hedge fund and they would start their own enterprise, writing or insuring or buying mortgage-backed securities. Anyone would buy that note. In 20 years of writing loans, I kid you not, in 20 years of writing loans, I'll bet you I had 10 people with a credit score over 760 and a 70 LTV. Seriously, and I wrote thousands of loans.
Yeah.
And this is going to be the case for everybody. So the fact that that is the average of what Fannie and Freddie is giving their implicit guarantee on tells me that they are not fulfilling their charter of serving underserved communities. That is we're going to see a change this year. Okay. We are going to see a loosening of underwriting guidelines on your Fannie Freddie deals, where, your higher LTV deals, your Flex 97s, your 95s. You're going to see a number of different bond programs that are going to be insured or purchased by the government-sponsored enterprises. The incoming administration is, after the meltdown in 2008, we knew that we needed to write a cleaner book of business. Now, we were before 2008, like literally, I remember there was a company called New Century, and I would call my account rep and they'd say, just send it in. I'll be like, hold on, Don, I got a 480 credits, just send it in.
Yeah.
Just send it in. Like, does he have a heartbeat? Can he fog a mirror with his breath? Then we'll give him a loan. Like, we knew that we had to write better loans than we did in 2007, but the pendulum swung way too far. And we haven't come off that. And that's what's tripping me out, because the knee jerk is we have to write a cleaner book of business. So we're going to write the cleanest book of business and screw everybody else. Like, I kind of understand that for a period of time, but we are well north of a decade out of the 2008 meltdown, and we haven't come off these high standards, which tells me that underserved communities, oftentimes minority communities, are not getting they're not getting the credit availability to go ahead and build wealth through home ownership with the government-sponsored enterprises. And these are the government-sponsored enterprises. We all pay taxes, so we should have a certain level of affordability. And we need to come off that 760 number. That's way too high. There's a lot of, for instance, in underserved communities, oftentimes minority communities that don't use a lot of credit. You can't even get a 760 score because you don't have enough open and close, bookend and revolving accounts to
Sure.
get a score that's a 760. So we literally are limiting at a government level the ability for underserved and minority groups to have access to home ownership and wealth building. So we are certainly going to come off that. We're going to be more focused on serving underserved communities with the GSEs. That is going to happen under the Biden administration. And frankly, I'm not an apologist here. I don't. Not everybody should have a house. Like I'm not about that. Not everybody should. Not everybody can afford a house. Not everybody's going to take care of a house. But we have to be better than what we're doing. We have to be better. And I think we're going to see us coming off that standard a little bit. And we're going to start to see the GSEs being used to help low-income communities or moderate-income communities. And it's way overdue, guys. Super, super overdue. It is a good thing.
Let's go to the extreme. Say Fannie comes out and they're going to roll back the Fast and Easy program, the old Countrywide days. You remember that program?
Oh, hell yeah.
580 credit score, 80% first, 5% second, or 15% second. Didn't care where your 5% down payment came from. And it was state income, state assets. So it was a completely terrible deal because there was no checks and balances with it. But even what I'm getting to is even if Fannie says, hey, we're going to loosen up, the banks still have to follow, right? Wells Fargo, Bank, all these people that say, I don't care what Fannie says, it's still our money that we're putting out there. I mean, do they follow? We've seen that issue before though. With the old one.
So for instance, so Fannie and Freddie have these things called loan level price adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so your loan level price adjustments are, if you have a 780 credit score, we ain't gonna hit you with nothing. If you have a 680 credit score, you're not as good of a risk because you've missed some payments. So we're gonna charge you 50 basis points, something like that. Okay, so now you have, that's a half a point. So on a $500,000 loan, it's $2,500, or 400,000, it's $2,000. Got a 680 credit score, it's an added $2,000 for you. Your loan to value is going to be 97%. Oh, we're going to charge you 1.5 points for that because that high LTV means you're a higher risk. And so they have these loan level price adjustments for the GSEs to make more money, and for investors on mortgage-backed securities to make more money with our loan level price adjustments. What happens is lenders then will put their own price adjustments on top of what the government-sponsored enterprises do. And they do this because they deem there's risk and there is risk when somebody has lower credit scores or a higher LTV, or perhaps even, a scattered, work history, things like that. So lenders then will put their own loan level price adjustment saying, if I'm going to take on this heavy risk, because I can write 760 loans all day long. Why the hell would I write a 660 if, credit score person when I can write 760s? Well, I'm going to write the 660 because it's going to have a bigger return on investment for me because there's more risk in that 660. So lenders then will add cost to lower credit score folks. What would have to happen for lenders to lend more with folks who are deemed a higher credit risk is there would need to be some very clear guidance in terms of buyback policies. The buyback policies. So what happens if a lender has to, real estate agents, a lender's going to lend money off a line of credit. It's like a credit card. So if I have $1,000 credit card and then I buy something for $500, well, now I only have $500 left on my $1,000 credit card, right? Until I pay that off. But here's what I'm going to do. Let's say I bought this fantastic book on the history of Nero, and but this is a collector's edition. So I bought this book for $500 on my $1,000 credit card. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this book and I'm going to sell it to this guy over here for $500, and then I'm going to take the $500 and I'm going to pay that back against my credit card. So now I have $1,000 of credit free. Make sense? Mm-hmm. So I buy it over here. It goes on my credit card. I sell it over here. I pay off my credit card, and I keep that line of credit open. So what happens with lenders is if there is something wrong on a note, or if that note doesn't perform, that lender could have to buy that note back. Now I have a loan that's on my credit card, and I can't sell it to anybody. So now I have to keep it on my credit card. So rather than being able to use $1,000, I only have $500 because I can't get rid of the damn book, right? Mm-hmm. So what do I do as a lender? Okay, there is a place I can sell it. It's called the scratch and dent market. Now imagine if you owned a car lot in Missouri, and you had you had a hailstorm that came through there, and it was dropping hail the size of grapefruits. Well, all the cars on your lot are going to get banged up. And so what happens is that person would sell those cars on what's called a scratch and dent market. Okay, you sell them for a loss. It's the same thing with a mortgage. So if I have that mortgage, that high risk mortgage that I can't sell, say it's $400,000, I can go and sell it now on the scratch and dent market, but I can't get $400,000 for it. I can only get $250,000 for it.
Yeah.
Meaning I'm going to take $150,000 loss on that under or non-performing loan. So there would have to be clear guidance from the government-sponsored enterprises about buyback policies with lenders so they don't get stuck servicing loans that are deemed a higher risk. And I don't see that happening necessarily. Frankly, a lot of these loans that are going to be written with the lower credit scores are probably going to come from, the cities, the Chase, the Wells, and the B of A. And they're going to do it because the Treasury is going to twist their arm and make them do it or threaten to sue them once again.
Yeah.
It's true.
Going back to the CFPB, getting a shot in the arm with more legal counsel. So,
Yep.
All right, my man. Well, this has been fun. It's always great talking to you.
Yeah,
and,
this is cool.
Yeah, I appreciate the time and the knowledge. And for everybody who's out there that's still stuck with us, make sure you subscribe or you download the mobile app to the National Real Estate Post. Amazing content that him and his boy Frank Gray put out every day.
Every day.
Just keeps you informed on it. And yeah, go fight Zillow.
Oh, we will. Yeah. I'm hoping the one of these days they're going to bless me with a lawsuit. I'm just hoping it's sooner than later.
You're the only person I've ever heard say that you would be blessed with a lawsuit. Yeah,
oh God, I would love it. They wouldn't do it because it would galvanize the troops. But I think it'd be great. What are they going to take? I got nothing. What are you going to take? My truck?
All right.
All right.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Later, guys.